PCS 300. Today I'm going to be doing my instructional strategy presentation, and I decided to do mine on talking circles. The reason why I chose talking circles personally is because one time I actually did participate in a traditional talking circle, and I have to say it was actually a very well done and fun and enlightening experience for me to be involved in, that I got to do with an elder in one of my first years at university. So I'm going to get into this. So I have a few definitions for you. The first one I got from one of the articles that I read by Elena Winters, which was from Heartland Community College. So it goes: talking circles, also called peacemaking circles, come from the traditions of indigenous people of North America, particularly tribes in the Midwest. Circle processes are based upon equality between participants and the principle of sharing power with each other instead of having power over one another. So another definition that I found, because there are many different ways that you can define talking circles, is from First Nations Pedagogy Online, which is actually one of the most useful resources I found during my research process. So it says talking circles, or circle talks, are a foundational approach to First Nations pedagogy in action, since they provide a model for an educational activity that encourages dialogue, respect, the co-creation of learning content, and social discourse. So I also wanted to briefly give my definition, or how I would describe talking circles, and I got this idea from one of our classmates, Bree, and I thought it was actually a really, really good idea. So I would define talking circles as it is a focus to build relationships and trust with one another, and it is a goal to produce interconnectivity amongst sometimes serious topics or interesting topics that you want to discuss. Or I even went in some of my research, watched a video of talking circles during an AA meeting. I think that was AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which I thought was actually a very interesting take on it. Alright, Indigenous context. So talking circles are a non-hierarchical form of conversation. So again, by non-hierarchical, we mean everyone is equal, no one is above the other. So even when you have the talking leader, you are still equal with your participants. It's just that this is your talking circle that you are controlling. You're not above everyone else, you're not having power over people, but you are in control of the circle, but still equal. So the circle also symbolizes completeness and is a way for participants to equally discuss a topic. So the reason why I brought that up is the factor of it being completeness is actually very important to the traditional aspect of talking circles, because the circle was something that was given to us by the Creator, which was my last point. I should have moved it up, sorry about that. But it means that if you are doing a talking circle and say you don't have the best time management and you run out of time and not everyone gets to finish what they're saying, you must honor the circle and honor the Creator, which you agreed to by participating in the circle, by completing the circle. You can't just walk away and be like, all right, we'll finish it next time. Everyone must have a chance to speak, everyone must have a chance to contribute to the circle, and then there must be a closing for it to be a complete circle. The thoughts and feelings of all participants are valued equally. The seating order allows all participants to see each other's nonverbal cues and make eye contact with everyone while discussing. So one of the reasons why I love talking circles so much is that it is a lot better and easier to discuss with people when you're all facing around each other instead of talking to someone's side or being in a lecturing position and talking to a bunch of 20 eyeballs staring at you. So it's a little bit easier because some people might be looking down, some people might be looking at your face, but you can kind of look everywhere, and it is a lot easier to talk and discuss and share your opinions when you are feeling like you are in an equal aspect. Mention the importance of the sacred steps and why there is an altar and the symbolism behind it. So one thing that I noticed in my research is that a lot of teachers who implement talking circles in their lessons, they don't really focus on the very traditional aspects of talking circles that I learned. So in one video that I watched, the AA one that I mentioned, I learned by, I believe his name is Don Chillis. He is from the Mohawken tribe and from the Turtle Clan on his mother's side, if I am remembering correctly. And he said that the reason why the altar is important is because altogether it represents a symbol of completeness and interconnectivity and equality. So I'm going to get into it. One thing that you will see with the altar is you will see these 4 colors. You will see red, black, white, and yellow, and usually will be in a circle. So you can use either printout, or you can have some rocks for that, or other ways to represent all the 4 colors. But these colors represent all of human race. They represent every single different kind of person, and they are a way to show respect and that no one person is above one another. So one example that they used in the video that I really liked was they compared humans to flowers. You know, a rose is completely different from a lily or a tulip, but they are all considered so beautiful, not one more than the other. Yes, some humans have their preferences, but in reality, all the flowers are equal, all of the humans are equal. We are all equal. Another important part of the altar that you will see in a talking circle, and traditional one, is a shell. And the reason why they use a shell that I can remember, and I don't want to mess this up at all, is the shape is what attracts a natural heartbeat that brings about a calm, and I believe the word is nakashniya, which means the feeling of interconnectedness. And it is also used for part of smudging, which is at the beginning of the talking circle and while you're doing your opening. So the reason why they have smudging is to bring about what I already said, nakashniya, which is that interconnectivity, but also a sense of calm. So you would have probably sage or another type of traditional medicine that would be inside the shell, and while you're doing your opening, say if you are showing a video to introduce your topic, or you're reading a poem or doing a blessing, you will have this lit and then go around the circle, letting each participant bring the smoke into their heart first and then over their head. So this technique is for connecting the heart and the head, which is a part of bringing about the calm feeling and making participants ready to share and feeling open. And the fact that everyone is doing it together, it brings a bonding experience, which will also, I've said it a million times, but is extremely important with talking circles, interconnectedness. That is what a talking circle is all about. You have to remember that with the talking circle, we are all a small part of something big. That is also another great definition of a talking circle. You are all a small part of something big. You are making something big together. Is a very, what's the word I'm thinking of? I just remembered. It's collaborative. That was going to eat at me. That was on the tip of my tongue. But it's a very collaborative thing to do. And another thing that you will see in the center is the object of power. And for this situation, I use a talking stick. Probably can't see super well, but that is what it looks like. So a talking stick, a more traditional one, might have some feathers on it and some beads, but I learned that with talking circles and objects of power, you can use almost anything. So one thing that I want to use a talking circle for was a self-regulatory health lesson that I'm planning for my grade 6-7s. And for that, I had the idea that maybe I would use this little stress ball, because we'd be talking about, I have it here. thinking traps and, you know, certain methods that can help with that, including the 3 R's, which are record, rationalize, and replace. So I was thinking one thing that we could use could be, like, this could be the object of power. A stressful ball is a form of stress relief. But also, my 6/7s might get a little distracted with that because it's a sort of fun toy, so might not. But now back to talking circles. I wanted to say one factor that you should also mention maybe in the opening while everyone is doing their smudging is the gifts and blessings that people will receive from participating in a talking circle. So that includes a feeling of belonging, which is actually a basic human need of survival. We all have a feeling like we need a sense of belonging. We need to be able to connect with others, and we need to feel like we can just be ourselves without being judged. And that is the big gift the talking circles give to their participants. It is a non-judgmental form of being able to discuss with others and share your opinion. And you'll also gain a very strong sense of trust if a talking circle is done right. You feel that you can share anything and that you will not be judged. Of course, you know, this all depends, like the gifts that you receive from a talking circle all depends on how well it is put together and how well you really focus on as a talking circle leader or as the circle keeper, how much you are enforcing that interconnectiveness and encouraging others to be open. So you have to remember that as the circle keeper, you have to model ideal behavior. Right, my next slide. So step by step, the main idea of talking circles, which I've briefly mentioned, is it useful when the topic under consideration has no right or wrong answer, or when people need to share feelings. It also works great for specific related topics, but it can also be used for topics such as a course calendar or classroom disputes or arguments or really effective reading strategies, what education and what the course means to students, many various things you can do for talking circles. A lot of different topics you can use. Can really cover anything in my belief. You just need to adjust the questions that you ask and the prompts that you use, maybe the icebreakers that you have. I'll get into the icebreakers in a minute. But during the circle time, people are free to respond however they want as long as they are following specific guidelines. So, introduction. As the gatekeeper of the circle, I love the word gatekeeper. That is one that I will be using because it's, well, I want to say it's slightly formal and enforcing, but you have to remember, it's all about equality. So if you think gatekeeper is a little bit too much of giving you a higher up role, you can just say I'm the circle keeper. But introduce the topic that will be addressed and the circle guidelines. You may also choose to post a short prayer, blessing, or inspirational quote to help set the ambience of the circle. So I didn't put it in here, but this is also where you will incorporate smudging. If you want to, I have seen where the lessons are done without it, but I think to really appreciate the multicultural aspect of talking circles and using another cultural's instructional and strategy is to incorporate all factors of it. And in the videos that I watch and the research that I've done, talking circles are done with smudging. It is a very important part of it. It is one thing that brings about the sense of calm and interconnectedness. So I already said you introduce the talking stick, object of power. You need to make sure that the students and participants are aware that the person who holds this stick, who has this, is the only one who gets to talk. No one else can talk while I am holding this. This is very powerful. So once the circle begins, the stick is passed around in a clockwise direction. A person talks until they are finished, being respectful of the time. The circle is complete once everyone has had the chance to speak. A person may pass the stick without speaking if they so wish. If desired, the stick may be passed around the circle again if there is more to be added. So I'm going to go back to the guidelines part of this, and I'm going to go into it a bit more in the teaching strategies, but one thing that I think every talking circle should do is create the guidelines together as a group, as a talking circle, because With students, you might have some students that are very shy and do not exactly want to share their inner thoughts or their personal feelings. So having them more engaged in creating the activity will hopefully spark some more engagement in them and wanting them to participate. So continue the step-by-step. What is said in the circle stays in the circle, so that is very important. In your opening, you want to make sure to thank everyone for joining the circle, thank them for participating, say, I am very honored for you to be here and for participating, but you must remember that the circle is very confidential. What you hear and see here must stay in the circle. We must honor all the other participants that are involved in the circle. You also have to remember a circle used to discuss issues of importance and is very non-judgmental, is extremely respectful of everyone as individuals and what they have to say. Silence is an acceptable response. There must be no negative reactions to the phrase, I pass. So with this, it is really important to enforce in the guidelines, if the students forget to add it, that it is okay to pass or to say I pass. It is an acceptable response. There can be no negative reaction to that. There can be no facial reactions. There can be no rolling of eyes, which is also a facial reaction. But it is okay for a person to not share if they aren't feeling like it. It would be, more beneficial if everyone could, but there is a chance that a student does not have anything that they want to share, or they're just not comfortable yet, which is completely fine. Speakers must feel free to express themselves in any way that is comfortable by sharing a story, a personal experience, by using examples and metaphors, and so on. So remember, as the gatekeeper of the circle or the circle keeper, it is your job to model the ideal behavior. So it is really good to encourage students to share personal stories, because these personal stories that other people will hear will create, empathy and understanding and comprehension of others, and will begin to build that trust amongst each other. So this is an example that I got from the First Nations Pedagogy Online of some guidelines that you can use. I'm going to go through it really quickly, but I will have my slideshow linked in the video, like in the description down below, so you guys can find this. Online talking circle, the following diagram of the student circle in a clockwise direction. Only the person who receives the stick graphic contributes, all of the rest read and reflect. When it is a person's turn, they may comment on what has been said as well as share their perspective. A person writes or talks, if it's video or audio, until they are finished, being respectful of time. The circle talk is complete when everyone has had a chance to contribute. If desired, the stick may be passed around again. What is shared in the circle stays in the circle. All communications must be written or spoken with respect. Sorry about that. The circle can be synchronous, where all students engage at the same time, or asynchronous, where each student engages when it is their turn and at a convenient time. But I would say it is best to create your guidelines with your class instead of just taking one from the internet. It is better to do one that represents your class itself and what works best for you guys. Some cautions to keep in mind, because talking circles aren't perfect. Consider the individual needs of the participants. Without a doubt, you will have some students that have social anxiety, or that just really don't feel like sharing. They're scared of what other people will think of them. Probably go back to social anxiety. So it is good to consider some adaptation. I was thinking that one solution for, students that have anxiety with talking around others or performance anxiety is to have slightly smaller talking circles and have students set up those ones. They can be the circle keepers and students can participate in that way, because it might be easier to share in a smaller setting than when the entire class is judging you. Respect the different comfort zones of the participants. That goes back to the first one. Ensure that participants feel safe. Be mindful of the regional protocols in the design of the circle. Be mindful of the traditional and sacred aspects of the talking circles and the steps that are involved. I really wanted to add that aspect of the sacred aspects into traditional aspects, because, again, a lot of times in my research, the lesson plans that use talking circles, they just got right into it. they didn't dedicate time towards smudging or even talking about that. So in the ones that I'm going to do with my 6th, 7th, there wouldn't be enough time to do smudging, but I would do a quick video to show them what smudging is. And the students, thankfully, they go to a school where they are able to participate in smudging on a weekly basis, which is amazing that they have that. So they are aware of what smudging is, but I would still definitely mention and talk about all the great aspects of smudging and why it is important to talking circles and how it brings about interconnectedness. Alright. Teaching strategies. Ask students what they know about Indigenous talking circles to get them thinking in traditional appreciation mindset. Tell students how talking circles work. Explain that everyone in the circle is equal, that an object is held by the speaker, only the person holding the object may speak. Make sure that you introduce the class to the importance of cultural diversity in teaching methods. Create the guidelines for talking circles as a class. Give participants the opportunity to write response ahead of time based on the prompts to promote students to share more insightful contributions. So, another strategy that could help with some of those shy students or ones that are scared to share their opinion is some of those students, they don't like to think on the spot. They like to, think a little bit at a time and sort of edit their thoughts before they share them. They don't like to give the first draft. They like to make a final draft. So I was thinking one thing that could help them is to give students a little hook activity before the talking circles, is to hand them out some of the prompts and give them the opportunity to write these responses and either share them with a partner or share them with you, the teacher. And I also have some guiding questions that will encourage you to go deeper inside the talking circle and to get more, more participation, and some icebreakers that could help build trust and start the talking circles right. And I'll get into that after the video, and I'll also have them linked below. So I have a prep sheet. This you guys will be able to see in the presentation. Hopefully you can see it right now. I mean, you'll be able to see if you click on my slide. But I'm going to go through it quickly. So on this you'll have the title, topic of circle, the course, preparations. You have the circle keeper, circle co-keeper, circle purpose, what must be addressed in the circle, what prep do you need to do ahead of time, talking piece and other material needed, including videos, articles, activities, poems, etc. for the opening. Circle details, what is your opening, what is your icebreaker, if you want to use an icebreaker, what are some of your check-in questions to make sure the students are feeling engaged still and that they're enjoying themselves in the talking circle. What are some surface and deep questions for the talking circle? What can you do for reflection and learning questions for the talking circle? How do you want to introduce and create guidelines, and your closing questions and your closing in total? Yes. So, curriculum connection. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I see I'm already going through a lot of time. And again, this will be linked below. But for ELA, also before I get into this, I just want to say that personally, I do believe that talking circles can be used for every subject, just because you can adapt them in so many ways. I think one of the hardest ones I had to find was mathematics, just because how they teach math usually doesn't have a lot of discussion, but I found a few that worked. So I really do think talking circles can be used for anything. I know that might bite me in the butt. People be like, really? Anything? I'm going to come up with something that can't be. But I think that if you adapt your questions and your opening and your closing and your prompts enough and what you want to do to initiate the talking circle, you can have it cover almost any topic. So for ELA, I chose CR 8.5 and CC A 30.3. I don't know if I have enough time. I'm at 25 minutes. I'm not going to go into them. I'm sorry, but they'll be linked. So mathematics, I chose to do PF 5.2 and FM 20.1. This one I'm going to go into a little bit. ELA, you can think it's probably easy for talking circle. So for this one, I chose demonstrate understanding of the mathematics involved in a historical event or an area of interest. So for this one, it can bring about a debate, and if you're able to have a debate on something or share opinions, you can have a talking circle. Social studies, incredibly easy to have a talking circle. So easy. I chose PA 3.2 and IN 9.2 as just some examples. Some more curriculum connections: sciences, RM 4.2 and CS 20-F.1, which is computer science. And also I'm choosing outcomes from a lot of different grades. I think the youngest I went was maybe grade 3 or 4, and the oldest I went was maybe grade 11 or grade 9 or 10, or even level 30. So arts education, I chose CP 8.6 and also choral 10, 20, 30. And additional courses, I did PE and also CS 9.2, which is Catholic studies, so you can do it in a religious sense as well. And also I want to connect it to Bloom's taxonomy. Sorry, I suck at saying the word. It is good to use Bloom's taxonomy as it is a guide because it helps to develop critical thinking and well-developed cognitive abilities in students. Consider the level of your students and that of the course. Aim to reach objectives in different levels. So I went and I got this picture and my information from Teachings in Education, which is a YouTube channel that I actually recommend. It was pretty interesting. I liked it. So the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. And I can't dive into it as much as I would have liked, but if you think about how talking circles go, and I think about talking circles, they can be broken down into 4 steps, the entire process, which is, Sorry, I had to sneeze quickly. So the 4 processes that I have is building connections, dive into the surface, going further, and also reflection and learning. So for remembering and understanding, that can go into the first few steps that you have, and also applying, analyzing, which are use, illustrate, complete, solve, identify, compare, explain, categorize. Those can be done and touched on in the process of talking circles, so students will have to identify what other students' perspectives are, and also they will be given the opportunity to compare their different ideas. So decide, prioritize, rate, justify, create, imagine, design, plan. So I think evaluating and creating, evaluating could be done in the reflective stage of the talking circle, and creating could be done afterwards in a continuation lesson. So if you want students to create their own talking circles, that could be used there. Alright, and here is my bibliography. I'm going to pause this a moment so I can quickly show you guys the icebreakers that I have. Alright, so I'm just going to hold the camera and kind of talk and quickly show you guys this PDF I found for talking circles and some guiding questions and some closing ideas and what you should do and some icebreakers. So they give you some check-in questions, things you can do after the circle, some debrief questions that you can use, how do you feel after the circle, what was your favorite part of the circle, what's the most challenging about the circle, that type of stuff. Icebreaker community activities, so some things like weather report, animal name game, where the wind blows, just a few more ideas. They have quite a few ideas, which is why I wanted to link this for you guys, just because it is a really, really useful and important resource that I found. You can use telephone, everyone loves the game telephone. Some circle questions. So they give you the categories of lower risk questions and higher risk questions. Hopefully you guys can see that. And yeah, so that is my presentation on talking circles, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.